the greatest Green Lantern that ever existed. Or at least, that is what he thinks. Hi guys, welcome to Multiverse. So today, obviously, we are going to take a look at our friend Guy Gardner. So maybe you guys have been requesting a Guy Gardner video for quite some time. I made a Guy Gardner video look in the past in a video or two, but I don't think I made a Guy Gardner dedicated video. So tonight is the night of nights. So let's get this party started. As with all Green Lanterns, our friend Guy Gardner started with pretty much a standard Green Lantern costume. Not sure if he ever wore the mask or not. Uh, Basically, I never read the first appearance of Guy Gardner. I only saw him in the pages of Justice League a few years later. But I recall seeing a cover where you see Guy Gardner basically in the classic Green Lantern costume and with the mask in his hand as if he had just removed it. So I'm not sure if he ever did use the mask, but he seems to have used the traditional Green Lantern costume at least for a bit. And of course, to be able to recreate that costume, you need the slimline chest piece, the new Genesis pants, here I'm using the Stalwart Defender boots, the trim classic gloves, and of course, the enhanced version of the Green Lantern emblem. And of course, the, the glowing power chroma. So as you can see, it allows you to create a pretty darn good Green Lantern character. But of course, Guy Gardner had to have his own Green Lantern costume, so let's take a look. For quite some time, this is what our friend Guy Gardner looked like. And even after Rebirth, he pretty much reverted to that look. The one thing though is that we cannot have a Green Lantern emblem. If we could have the Green Lantern emblem to the front of the chest piece, that would be perfect. Sadly, within the context of DC Universe Online, sometimes you have to make compromises. So what I did instead is that in order to be able to have the Green Lantern emblem, I'm using the Scion of Ion back piece to have an emblem. But if I could have the emblem to the front and a bit to the left of the character, that would be awesome. For the boots, I was tempted to use the Star X boots because originally Guy Gardner had some pretty huge boots, but I settled with the Guardian boots instead. For the pants, any slimline pants will do the trick. The belt is the Escaped Inmate. The gloves are the Aeronaut gloves. I'll show you the name because I'm struggling with that name all the time. So the gloves are the Aeronaut gloves. The belt is the Escaped Inmate. The boots are the Guardian Fighter boots. The chest piece is the Gardner style chest piece. It is spot on with our friend Guy Gardner. Sadly, the one thing that is missing is the emblem to the front of the chest piece. For the material, I'm cheating a bit. I'm using the glowing chroma material, but in order to be able to get the gloves white and the same for the belt, I'm using the opalescent material. So as you can see, you can create a pretty darn good version of our friend Guy Gardner if you want to. And obviously, you're going to want to use the green light stream movement mode or movement style for your Green Lantern character. And I didn't use an aura. You could use a few green auras, but as you can see, the material itself is glowing a bit, as if there was an aura around the character. So I would be tempted to not use an aura with this look. And this is the look that I discovered the character with. Basically, the first time I saw this character was within the pages of Justice League. It was a short while after the Legends miniseries, and Guy Gardner had joined the Justice League, and at the time he was pretty much qualified as Rambo with a power ring, if it makes any sense. So this is the look I've known the character under to begin with, and it always been a bit weird to me whenever new creators would try to change his look, and they at some point it's as if they didn't know what to do with him. At some point they brought Hal Jordan as the main Green Lantern, and they didn't know what to do with Guy Gardner afterwards. So he went through a whole bunch of changes. We're going to take a look at a few changes that Guy Gardner went through. One of the first changes they made to Guy Gardner at some point is that for some reason they took away his green power ring, but then they gave him Sinestro's yellow power ring. So for a while, Guy Gardner was using Sinestro's ring, and they gave him obviously a different costume since he was no longer a Green Lantern at the time. It was pretty similar to his Green Lantern costume, but basically with different colors. So the gloves are the Harley Quinn gloves, the DC Bombshell Harley Quinn gloves, but pretty much everything else is the same as what I showed you before. Oh, the exception to that would probably be the pants. Here I'm using the retro pants. But it's pretty much the same styles as its classic look, just tweaked a bit with different colors, obviously. But at some point they had to tweak the look again, and also they were calling him Warrior at the time. So here I'm using the armored detective gloves, I'm using the owl suit pants, the gadgeteer boots, and for the jacket, it's the biker jacket. And you can see the warrior emblem on the shoulder. I wish we could have it in the front. Basically, he had like a jacket, and underneath he had like a tank top or a t-shirt with the W on it. But again, within the context of DC Universe Online, this is about as close as we can get. And then this is where things became really messed up. At some point, they tried to give him some sort of tattoos. They made him some sort of alien race that could turn into various weapons somehow. Uh, Sadly, within the context of DC Universe Online, this is about as close to that look as I was able to get, and even then, it's nowhere near close. The tattoos, there's no way to be able to reproduce the tattoos that Guy Gardner had at the time. So again, this is as close as I was able to get, which is not close at all. And then what had to happen happened. They made Guy Gardner an evil Red Lantern. Yeah, I know Red Lanterns now are seen pretty much as an anti-hero, but originally they were pretty much evil characters. Sadly, I couldn't really reproduce the look that our friend Guy Gardner had as a Red Lantern, so I cheated a bit. I'm a cheater, pumpkin eater. I just used pretty much Guy Gardner's original look, but I used the red chroma material, or I should say the Furious chroma material. I tweaked the boots a bit. I'm using the Stalwart Defender boots instead. And I added the Spindrift shoulders just to be able to have some extra Red Lantern emblems with our friend Guy Gardner. So it doesn't really look like when Guy Gardner was a Red Lantern, but if you create this look, people would understand that this is the Red Lantern version of our friend Guy Gardner. Technically, this is what our friend Guy Gardner looked like as a Red Lantern, and there's no way I couldn't find a chest piece that looks even remotely like that. At some point, they gave him another Red Lantern costume, which kind of looked like this. It's not exactly it, but it's close enough within the context of DC Universe Online. But they gave him pretty much a very generic look. Guy Gardner had a pretty distinctive look, but I guess people didn't like the look. It looked too retro or too classic or something, so they decided to try to reinvent the character. They tried to reinvent the character for years, pretty much ever since he stopped being a Green Lantern in the early 90s. They've been trying to reinvent the character over and over. And sadly, they never really were able to do that, so he keeps on reverting to his classic look. Here I'm using the Dashing Crusader headpiece. Of course, again, the Red Lantern emblem, the slimline chest piece, any slimline pants, pretty much will do the trick. The Stalwart Defender boots. Here I'm using the Armored Detective gloves. I know, of course, the aura. That's the Crimson Misted aura for every good evil Red Lanterns. And as you may have noticed when I showed you the Legend version of our friend Guy Gardner, the Red Lantern version of our friend Guy Gardner, at some point he was using a Red Lantern and a Green Lantern ring all at the same time, and they gave him a look that kind of sort of looked like that. It's not exactly it, but it's pretty darn close. So if you were to recreate this look, people would understand that this is the Green Lantern, Red Lantern version of our friend Guy Gardner. Again, I've used pretty much everything that was his classic look. I just tweaked the colors a bit. In the comics, the color scheme was kind of sort of like that. Sadly, in order to be able to get those colors, there's no way that I could use the first chroma material or the glowing chroma material. It wouldn't work. Basically, we would need a red and green chroma material, or a furious and glowing chroma material. Maybe someday they'll create that. I guess we'll have to wait and see. So this is pretty much the classic version of our friend Guy Gardner. Again, they tried to tweak him quite a lot throughout the years, but whenever they run out of ideas or they think they've gone too far, they revert him back pretty much to this look. Right now, I have no idea what look he has in the comics right now, but I can guarantee you that at some point, if they're going to hit the reset button, and if they do, this is what the character will look like once more. I can feel it in my bones. I wouldn't be surprised if they're talking about giving us a Green Lantern Corps TV series on HBO Max. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is the version that we see in the HBO Max series, and that if that happens, odds are in the comics, you will probably revert back to this version as well. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. But this is the version that I discovered in the pages of Justice League. Ironically enough, it's not really in the Justice League comic that I became a fan of Guy Gardner. In the early days of the Justice League comic, or at least of that incarnation of the Justice League comic, there was this miniseries by Bernie Wrightson and Jim Starlin called The Weird, in which the Justice League played a pretty important part, and that is pretty much where I fell in love with Guy Gardner. That miniseries was awesome. If you ever get the chance, try to look it up. It's called The Weird, very simply, and it's by Jim Starlin and Bernie Wrightson. I forget who the inker was, but it's a pretty fun miniseries, and that is where I truly came to appreciate our friend Guy Gardner. And then when I went back to reading Justice League, or even later on, ironically enough, I read the Justice League comic and The Weird before I read the Legend miniseries. In the Legend miniseries, you see a pretty early version of Guy Gardner, and you could see that it was a bit difficult to deal with. You can see why it led to a whole bunch of shenanigans when he was part of the Justice League. So that is going to be pretty much it for our friend Guy Gardner. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask so in the comment section down below, and I'll see what I can do about answering your questions. So as always guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.